So, I thought I'd just very quickly put up a couple of comments around a couple of things. Firstly, obviously, the thing that's top of mind around the world at the moment is the horrific scenes and situation that's happening in the Ukraine, and with Russia invading, and we're seeing scenes of people dying, massive explosions, um, convoys of armored vehicles traveling towards Kiev from the Russians. Um, and equally scarily is the number of refugees crossing the border into Poland and Slovakia in particular. And from a forensic accounting point of view, there's really not much you can do to help with that. But everyone feels a need to want to help. And when you see these humanitarian tragedies, there's a desire to want to assist. And I guess therein lies the opportunity for the most repugnant of society to take their opportunities. And we see it time and time again, and I've spoken about it before, that in times of crisis, whether it's in this case geopolitical or even natural disasters, you see them come out of the woodwork and they start asking for donations to help and all the rest of it. Now, I haven't seen or heard too much of it yet, but you can guarantee that it won't be long before these guys come out of the woodwork and suddenly it's going to be a here help with the Ukraine, because it's happened before when there have been these humanitarian crises out of Syria and the likes, where suddenly you thought you were giving money to Oxfam or to the Red Cross, and then it turned out it wasn't Oxfam or the Red Cross, it was some scam that was playing on your sensitivities and sensibilities and all the rest of it, and your desire to give and to help. And that's perfectly natural. So the only thing I'd say in respect of that is be aware that the circumstances are right for these guys, and that they'll take advantage of it. Just as much as we look and go, it's a terrible situation, we want to help, they look at it and go, it's a terrible situation, I can take advantage of. And it will happen. They'll come out of the woodwork and they'll do it. The other thing, for more from a business point of view, is obviously the world is looking at imposing sanctions on Russia. And I understand some countries have started imposing sanctions on Belarus as well. And in my view, rightly so. But to know whether or not the people or the companies or the entities you're dealing with are subject to those sanctions can be quite challenging. And so it's important that you do a degree of due diligence. You look in behind those, the businesses and the fronts, the people you think you're dealing with, and dig a bit deeper. And sometimes you might scratch far enough and find that there's something or an entity or a connection that you really don't want to be associated with. That doesn't happen universally, and I'm not saying all of them or everyone is bad, but if you have a suspicion, and if it is something you feel strongly about, then it might be that you want to do a little bit more due diligence in this area, in your business, and just find out a little bit more about who you think you're dealing with that might have some of those connections. I know some of the larger funds and things like that, they're divesting out of Russia, or companies associated to Russia. I don't think that's practical necessarily for all small businesses, but again, as I say, if it's something you feel strongly about, and if you have a suspicion that you want to test or exercise, then now might be an opportunity to do a bit more due diligence and know who it is that you're dealing with. Watch out for those scammers. They will come. Make sure who you're giving to when you are giving, and it's fine to want to give and want to help and all the rest of that, and I commend you if you do, but try and be safe about it. Make sure that you're giving to legitimate organizations, preferably ones where you seek them out rather than they seek you out, because if they're seeking you out, that's where really the opportunity comes for the scammers, if they're the ones making the approach. So try and make the approach. If you want to give, that's fine, but you go and look for the legitimate organizations, UNHCR, the Red Cross, Oxfam and the likes, and they'll make sure it gets to the right place rather than giving to someone who says that they represent one of those organizations and you just don't know. So that's the scammers. The other side is sanctions. If you want to know a bit more about who you're dealing with, or you don't want to be seen or don't want to be caught out in supporting any of those things, now might be a good time to do a little bit more due diligence.